No, welcome back. Hope you've been doing well. We've been working on building a streaming music service in Phoenix and Elixir. Last time we left off with, what did we leave off with? We left off with the thing, importing. We built a couple of functions to import bumpers, songs, and backgrounds. And since we last spoke, I went ahead and imported those things from previous prototypes where people had submitted them. And ran into two or three things during that process that I made some quick little patches, and I'll show them to you. So one was in computing the MP3 duration. I did have a couple of cases where in the tab delimited file I built with metadata about the bumpers and songs, that in a couple of cases I had the path to the MP3 file wrong. So we used to have file.read bang here, which would throw an error if the file couldn't be read. So instead, I use the regular read, and we catch the error. If there's an error, file.read returns a tuple that has an error atom and then another atom for the reason. And I think this comes up from the Erlang level. And so we do this file format error here, and then turn that from a char list into a string, so that can percolate up to see what the problem was, and then I was able to correct it in the source file. And then the other thing I ran into is this line here had just been returning data from this function. We need to return the OK data tuple, or that causes an error in the case where there is id3v2 tag at the beginning of the file. So those two fixes. Small MP3 fixes. Fix that, and then the other thing I noticed, I was playing around with running this XHR function on an older machine, and I noticed that the double star exponentiation operator, that's way newer than what I had thought. So I switched that out for math.pow, which actually I think looks better here. And it gives us a lot broader browser compatibility. So we'll just drop that in too. And so that brings you up to speed with where I'm at. I was thinking about media. So right now we have API endpoints that return the name of a media file, but I think what we really need is an URL to fetch the media file, and I would prefer to build it here rather than client side. And the reason for that is I'd like the base URL to be configurable by environment. So I would like to be able to have a different base URL in dev versus prod, for example, and maybe even for test. The reason for that is is my reason any good anymore? So the reason I was thinking that is I may wish to use a CDN or a CDN, but I've looked at some services where, like when I think of a CDN, at least I think of kind of like all I tell them is here's where the source of truth for these URLs is, and if they don't have it, they'll read through the cache to my source, cache it, and then out, and then they manage the cache and decide when to expire that or whatever. But I guess in this case I'm thinking of more like a media CDN where I wouldn't necessarily keep a copy of the media on my server, but at upload time, put it into the CDN directly, and then provide URLs into that. And so for that type of application, I'd like to be able to change the base URL depending on environment, because for local development, I'll just serve it locally and that's fine. And to get started with the production version, I'm happy to serve it locally, but I suspect from the little bit of math I've done that if this takes off and becomes popular, it could use enough bandwidth that the colocation facility I currently have my server at wouldn't be thrilled with me. They're mainly residential ISP. They also do colocation. So outgoing bandwidth might not bother them as much, but they do have limits, and the penalty for exceeding them is not a favorable rate. It's kind of a don't do this rate, not a, oh yeah, go ahead, use as much as you want, we'll just bill you for it. It's more of a, we'd prefer you didn't use more than what we had contracted for type rate. And so I would be just as happy to run that through it like a media CDN. I've looked at pricing from a couple of them and it's pretty reasonable. And it should improve performance for most listeners too. So I can see that being something I would do sooner rather than later. I don't think I need it to launch, but anyway, all that kind of long-winded, but yeah, so I think what I want is a function that will URL for media file name, for URL for media file. URL for oh, well, a file URL is not really what we want to call it. A lot of people would take that to mean a URL with a scheme of file. Returns URL. It's the best I can think of right now. Media file URL for given media. Yeah, something like that. URL. Probably better call that file URL. Something like this. Then we'll want to pull the base URL out of configuration, and we've done that recently. Where did we have a good example of that? Was that no, you were here. What did we do? Oh, it's on audio, and oh, it was on backgrounds. I was just looking at that. I missed it. Right here it is. Fetch env. Yeah, we'll use that same thing. Maybe if this was even a line or two longer, I think I'd factor it out, but I don't know. Maybe I ought to anyway. So we'll say and base URL is keyword.fetch and base URL, like that, right? And then we'll just Should the base URL have the slash in it already? I think so. So we won't even put a slash. We'll just concatenate the strings. Geez, what's, I never do string concatenation. I guess, is there a right way to do that? We could do string.join with no second string. We could do, is there a operator for it? Oh, right, binary, they're binaries. Like, why did I not think of that? Yeah, so base URL, we can do a binary concatenation to struct.file name. Yeah. That's probably what we need. I did compile, you know, I never did figure out what's going on with that. I'll be right back. I actually want to look into that right now, and then we'll test this and see what we can do. I got it. I just had to make sure that Phoenix got recompiled. I had to fuss with a little to get it to recompile. I think I got it. I thought I had it before, so I'll just say I think I got it this time. So yeah, so let's try it out. Let's use audio. Let's use backgrounds. It has less. Oh no, we have configuration now, so we can say current play, right? Cannot. Oh, we need still the. That is not the configuration, of course. Okay, so we get that, and can I just say like that? That does work. And then file URL. Got to put the configuration in there, haven't we? Which makes sense. Config file limo.media base URL. So for this, it'll just be that. And then when we break this config out, we'll fix that. And we'll have to quit and come back in since we changed the config. Great, it works. Okay, so now that we have that, we should use it over in our player view, right? Right, so alias, let's bring in media, and then we got 3 places where we do this. So file URL, like that, and we should do something like that too, right? I think that gets us there. let's take a look. Oh, we gotta do XHR, current audio. What went wrong here? Showing everything. Let's, oh, it's all, no, something kind of strange going on there, huh? See if turn it off and back on works. Surprising how often it does. Current audio. Oh, there it is. Just gotta scroll down. You know, it'd be nice if it did that automatically. Cool. Yeah, see, now we're getting the file URL. It's not quite... Is it? It's an URL... It's URL-ish enough to put it on, like, the source attribute of something. So, we'll go with URL. I mean, it's not a full, like, the whole URL. It's a relative URL, isn't it? Like an aunt or uncle or something, right? So, yeah, cool. So, and then that URL, so we didn't step on that, good. All right. And we'll call that media file URL. Okay. Now, the other thing we'll need to do, I guess, is we'll need to actually serve those files. And we'll have need to serve other static files as well. So, I guess we'll put that here. There's no need to parse anything before we hand it off to the static server, is there? We'll find out from priv static, I think is all we need. Yeah, I think that does it. What? Okay, that's at root. Okay, so I think we're, yeah, get that, and then that was interesting. So we should be able to just put that there. Cool. Yep, it loads up. Great. Everything's, it even plays. So we are doing great now. commit that, not a very big commit. Serve static files. Cool. And so that's all out of the way. What had we ought to do next? I think we can start building the front end a little more. So let's grab that. Now, I was thinking about this earlier, and I have prototyped this, so I have a pretty solid idea what this should look like. I've had a lot of feedback from other folks. I've used it a bunch myself, and we've really refined it a lot from kind of my initial idea. And so I want to continue that process and definitely not just start over. I want to build from what we've already got. So conceptually, at least. I don't know if I'll copy and paste a lot of code or not. Probably be more interesting for you if I just do it from scratch and kind of walk through some of the reasons behind it. And the other thing is the earlier prototypes, I didn't really make any effort for browser compatibility. It was just like, looks good on my machine. Because we were just trying to figure out like what's a good way to do things, what's a good way for this to work. So this time I will try to achieve the same functionality and look, but I'll try to focus on using older methods to get at it. So we're not going to use like Flexbox or something, any of the fancy new stuff. Although the prototype I currently have live does use Flexbox, but it's ended up being such a simple application of it that we can easily do the same thing with fixed positioning, I believe. So conceptually, the player page has, I would say, 4 parts right now. And one of them is a header, and that's got like the name of the service, which I actually render like that normally, but we may revisit that, we'll see. There will be some navigation here too. Eventually, we'll probably build that in a different video. I got kind of a tagline I'm still working on, but we'll put it in here kind of as a placeholder. Something like your soundtrack for work and study. That's our header. And we have a section, we will have a section for the audio. And so this is going to have things like we'll build this out more. I think we'll end up needing some, I don't know if we'll need, well, let's see how semantic we can make this, huh? Probably fairly semantic. So the audio section has like the artist, the title of the track. You gotta have audio controls like a play and pause button. We'll put in the URL that they can have. And then yeah, so we could do that as a definition list, but then we'd have to come back and like we could do it that way. It's a little more semantic, but we'd write a ton of CSS to like make a definition list not be a definition list. I am more inclined, thinking about, because one of the features of the prototype interface is to use color as a means to convey hierarchy rather than spacing and type size. And part of the reason for that is, well, there's a reason for that, and then there's an excuse for that not being super accessible. Although when I say color, I do include brightness in that too. So it's not totally inaccessible to somebody who doesn't see color or doesn't have color available as a option in whatever interface that they're using. But so the excuse is there's really not that much information to structure and show a hierarchy for. It's more of visual embellishment. And so for this, for something else, you might have a lot more data to structure. And we'll see, like, if it gets more complicated, I may need to find a better way to structure it semantically or visually. But we'll feel that out as we go. The other reason is there's not a lot of space. So I'm going to use the whole viewport. We're not going to scroll. It's just going to take the whole viewport. But the main thing that should be visible in the viewport is the background. And so anything that we put on top of it, I want to push out to the corners and use as little space as possible for it while still having it be readable and everything. But I don't want it to interfere with the main visual element, which is the background. So for that reason, I don't want to spend a lot of space on it. And then, of course, when you get on mobile or something, like, there is no space to spend. And so in that case, just the minimum information I want to share is going to be very dense on a mobile display, which I am not completely settled on making the web app mobile friendly. I won't just say like, oh, well, you can't use this on mobile, sorry. But I may actually let it like fall back to like the old, like not setting a viewport meta and just let it do the thing where it just tries its best to show the desktop side on mobile. If we can do a mobile app that's very good. So one way or another, I want to support mobile, but I'm not convinced that a web app's the best way to do it. I haven't worked on that too much yet, but I'm ready to go either way depending on what I find. So this is all subject to change. So we may do this in a more semantic way, or we may go with this, but let's rough it in for now. So some of the things that we need for the audio are we need the artist. Trying to remember if I just want to, do I want to put this all into, well, we'll break it into paragraphs for now. Do I want to, maybe I should use a definition list here. Term is artist. Definition is blank for now. Title and URL. Link, we'll call it. That's the end of the section. So that's the basics there. We'll also have an audio element in here. We'll come back to that. We'll do the metadata first, and then we'll add in the media. I think that'll be yeah, let's do it that way. We'll feel our way through it as we go. And then we'll have a section also for the background. And we can do the same thing here with a definition list. We have much the same. Yeah. Section. so that's 3. We have 4 corners. We're going to leave one of the corners open for now. Okay. All right, so that came up here. Good. So that's working. Golly, that was interesting. Okay, so we're going to need some JavaScript to actually call the API endpoints using our XHR convenience function and to fill in the metadata here, right? So let's work on that a little. Oh, do I want to... We'll just drop it right in this same script tag for now. I may factor some of this out into separate files, but I might just leave it all in the player page too, because then, you know, HTTP2 is a thing, but over HTTP, if you only have to load this one file to get up and going, aside from the media, of course, that would be nice. It'd be nice to not have to open a bunch of connections for other things. I don't know. More than one way to look at it, I guess, but... Okay, so let's just focus on one thing at a time. So let's do the current audio. And it's a play. So, well, it's not. That would be a little confusing. Let's just go with response. That's consistent with what we've already done. So when we get that response back, we need to set this metadata, which means... so how do we want to lay hold of these elements? I'm fine with putting an ID on them for now. I think that'll be good in this application. In other projects, I've used data set attributes and then used selectors to find what I need based on that. And you can actually throw together the better part of like a templating engine in like 50 lines of JavaScript that way, which is cool because I'd as soon not bring in like big JavaScript dependencies if I don't have to, which I rarely have to. But when you need them, it's nice that there's some good ones out there. So let's use IDs here. And I am goofy. I don't mind using the global variables that this generates. So we'll name them like we would name JavaScript variables. And I'm fine with that. So this will be audio artist. This will be audio title. And this will be the audio link. And then down here, it's as simple as, I'll do text, content. Let's see how that works, huh? It did not work great. What went wrong? Oh, it actually went just fine. We just got a bumper. So there's nothing to load in there. As I think of this, I realize we don't want, we want, can't omit the closing tag on an anchor. Man, so you got the link text. I think I'm just going to make, we could have, and we could still go back and store metadata for what the link text should be. I don't want to. Not right now. Maybe later we'll decide that's a good idea, but for now I'm happy to just have the link be like a forthright, here's where you're going. Let the text and the URL be the same. So let's do audio title. Title, I think this is pretty old, right? Goes way back. Not IE8 though. Did they have something else? Was that intertext that IE had before that? Or something like that? Yeah, it was. Okay, well, we're not using that. We've already precluded the older Internet Explorers anyway. Safari 3 is also going to be precluded by some of the other stuff we're doing. Just from having an audio element for one thing. So that's fine. So then audio link text content equals response dot URL. And in retrospect, maybe that should be called link all the way through, huh? We'll think on that some. Audio link dot set attribute href. We'll set the URL on that too. Okay, so this time we did get stuff back, and I don't see that our callback got called. Let's just see. No, it sure didn't. But we see load success. You let me leave that out when we were doing this? Man, you're not so helpful. Okay. Now it works. Cool. And this doesn't have an URL. So what I'm thinking is it might be nice to hide that element in that case. So here's some food for thought. What if we did this? Let's do this. Field, and then that's the anchor. Field. Oh man, if I want to disappear the whole thing. See, here's one of the problems with using the definition list. Is the DD element is not part of the DT element. It's not a child of it. So if we want to disappear both, we have to have label Gross, huh? Audio link label set attribute true. Let's remove attribute, right? Not delete. Yeah, it's totally remove attribute. Okay. Then now we should also consider the case of a bumper, right? Is what do we want to show in that case is I don't know, we'll try this out. I haven't done this before. Didn't have bumpers in the last prototype. So, yeah, okay, so we could do and we should have we'll hide those. That's it for that. Now up here we got to do the opposite. Something like that, right? Did I spell it wrong? Oh, Oh, there we go. Oh yeah, I should have audio. Yep. Okay, I think that that's working, and we'll keep an eye on it. And then we'll do something similar for the current background. And let's see, so there's always should be a background. Right, so we don't, I just got done saying that, so we don't need that. We do need this. The link is optional, of course. I don't know why I put artist in there. Background link label. Background link field. Where'd the A go? Background link anchor. You know, and we could use selectors to find some of this stuff, but I'm just as happy using IDs at this stage. If I see a good reason to switch, I certainly will. I'm not set in my ways about any of this. If, oh well, actually we have the simpler case here, so background artist field, text content, response artist, and then response.url. Yeah, I think that's that. Sure enough, and look at that, it even gives us a link. I love it. Great, well that's a great start. I'm willing to call this a video, and I think next time we'd better look at not just running these functions once, but we'll probably factor them into functions and then call them once to get started, and then we'll use the remaining time information to set a timeout, which will prompt us to call again and get the next one and the next one and on. And once we have that working, then we'll get into like loading the actual media. And we'll probably do that kind of contemporaneously with doing some of the styling too, because this is fine for this, but I want to do some of the styling, and maybe we'll even jump into that first and style up some of what we've already built, and kind of work back and forth. I don't know, we'll see how it goes, but like throwing a background on here, we need to do something with it to style it, or it's just going to sit there and not be cool. So yeah, we'll figure it out as we go. Yeah, so if you notice something I could have done better, if you have questions about how I did something, please let me know in the comments, and maybe we can learn something from each other. And as always, please let me know how I'm doing with the video itself, technically or content-wise, what you'd like to see. This is not just for me, it's for you too. So I'm eager to make something that you can enjoy. And on that note, I'll say take care.